Welcome to Heart of North Texas, a philanthropic podcast that celebrates the work of nonprofit organizations in the region. In each episode, we will bring you stories of compassion, resilience, and dedication from the people who are making a difference in the lives of others. This episode brought to you by Higher Energy Staffing. Ignite your workforce and fuel your future. On this episode, we welcome Jennifer DaSilva of Simply Grace. And now, Zoe Martin.
Before we introduce today's guest, I want to explain a little bit about what the Heart of North Texas podcast is all about. On the way here, I was listening to a podcast and it brought me to tears. I'm in a video class and they have a podcast that they feature different things. This particular gentleman has started, it's almost a movement, the pay it forward idea that we all know about. But he was watching a video about someone cutting grass. And one day he was driving by and saw an abandoned preschool. The grass was overgrown. And he told his wife he was going to get a tripod and he was going to get some behind the scenes of him cutting the grass for this abandoned preschool. It just better the neighborhood, right? And so what he did, it started, and that first video had like 7,000 views, which really surprised him. But the idea behind it is that kindness can be contagious. And I wrote it down on my hand, and I don't know if it can be seen on camera, but that idea is really what's behind the Heart of the North Texas podcast. The Heart of North Texas was started because we wanted people to understand the importance of giving back to the community. Kindness can be contagious. When we're giving back through nonprofits and people who are doing good, like if that gentleman were in the DFW area, I would have him on the podcast because the movement now, he's got 40-some thousand followers. There was a time where he had not just cut the grass for this family, but their roof needed repaired. And he put out to his community and said, this is more than I can do. You know, if we had $20,000, we would be able to fix the roof for this couple. And they had $40,000 the next day. And so like cumulatively, which is again, behind why we started the Heart of North Texas, Frito and I wanted to help people build a community, but then also the Caring for Collin County, where we collectively come together and contribute $10,000 or more to a nonprofit in the DFW area. I think that is so powerful, and it's important that we lift each other up. All that to say a couple of things. We need sponsorship, and there's always opportunities to put out in the area that nonprofits need things. They need volunteers, but we appreciate you all that listen because that is a huge, when sponsors see that we've got listeners, that's valuable to them. And so we need you to keep listening, share the podcast, comment, interact with us. But today, I'm very happy to be able to introduce Jennifer DaSilva. Jennifer, tell us the name of your nonprofit and what your role is with them.
Thank you for having me. So Simply Grace is a nonprofit organization with 5 sober living homes in DFW area, Fort Worth, Dallas, Richardson, Plano. We have an intensive outpatient program and counseling center in Richardson, and then another thrift store right next door that helps support. And I'm the executive director.
And the name of that thrift store is?
Simply Grace Thrift Store.
That's fabulous. And if you have items to donate, tell us what kind of items people can contribute.
Yes, we accept pretty much anything except for things that can be recalled, like a car seat, a crib.
Lots of baby items.
Yeah. Mattresses, but we can take frames. So pretty much anything else for men, women, children, home goods, holiday decor, pretty much anything else. And we accept donations on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday.
Ooh, which brings up another question. Are people able to contact you to come pick up the items, or do they need to be delivered to Simply Grace?
Currently, we don't have a pickup service, but we can work it out if it's like big furniture that needs to be gone at a certain amount of time. But mostly just bring it on over, come and check us out, and let us love on you.
That also, out of curiosity, I had posted a couch. It was this gorgeous leather couch, but there was a button that was missing. It was tufted. There was a button that was missing, and one of the legs needed to be reattached. Would that have been something you could accept? Or
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right.
For
Good
sure.
to know. So don't just put it on the curb and ask them to take it to the landfill. Contact
Right.
Simply Grace Thrift Store. Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. And then since you're the executive director, you have a story to how you got there, which is like thrills my heart to see where you've been and how you got here. I would love for you to share that with us.
Sure. So I've been in recovery since 2013. And my starting back in my sobriety journey was, cleaning houses and then moving up to different jobs. And I was working for a company that I loved, but it was a hard job, especially after my mom had passed away. And so I took a chance. I saw Simply Grace needed an operations manager, and I applied. But the story before that was my son had come to visit me. He lives in New Jersey, and he was so excited he got this new job, and he loves it, and he loves to just get up and go to work every morning. He's excited. And I thought, wow, that must be really nice, because I was in sales. And so, that was a lot of effort. So I said like a quick little prayer of, wow, God, that would be really, really cool if I could just wake up and love what I do. And so like a couple of years later is when I saw the posting for an operations manager. And so I second interviewed, and then I was hired. And about a year and a half in, I was promoted to executive director. So, if it hadn't been for my son's excitement, I wouldn't have thought it was possible to get to work in my passion and enjoy what I get to do every day.
Yeah.
Even though it's hard.
I'm sure. As a matter of fact, I'm curious, what does it look like for someone to participate in that program? Like, how do they find out about it? And is there a process for them to be accepted? What does that look like?
So initially, most of the people that move in, we work with women specifically who struggle with substance use disorder as a primary. Many others have mental health as secondary, and that's completely fine. But usually they're going into inpatient treatment, which they call residential treatment, or to a detox facility to get sober first. Once they're 7 days sober, they can potentially interview and move in. So there's an application online they would fill out on simplygracehouse.com, and then they would call, and we have an admissions person who would just do a pre-screen and an interview, tell them about our program. It's very high accountability, so it's different than most sober livings. It's been successful, so we continue the high accountability, and if they're a good fit for our program and they feel like we're a good fit for them in their recovery journey, then we just schedule a move in and proceed. And if they just want to do IOP and not sober living, that's a possibility as well. So it doesn't have to be both IOP and sober living. It could be either or.
For the potential possibility, people aren't unfamiliar with IOP. What is that?
So IOP is intensive outpatient programming, and that is kind of like a step down from being in a residential treatment center where you learn CBT and DBT skills and how to actually practice that in your environment versus being in a secure environment where you can't leave. How do I use the skills I learned in treatment to now be outside of treatment and not using or drinking? So it's a 9-week program. We meet Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays from 9 to 12. And there is we're in a gym. So there's a little bit of a movement that's different than most IOPs, just because we see the difference when people are up and moving. And it's really cool to watch some of the things that they do, because you can hear them come in kind of like ho-hum and not super excited about coming to IOP. But then after they've done this workout and taken a break, I mean, they're excited, they're happy, they're bubbly. You can hear them chatting. It's just really cool to hear and see the change in these women, just really from movement-based psychotherapy.
That's great. I love that. Since the women they could have family, for instance, children, a spouse, what does it look like for them to actually live in the homes? They're alone. They have their children with them.
So for the most part, they're living on their own in our homes. We do have a Mommy and Me house in Plano, and that is for women with children 2 to 12. If they do have a spouse, they live separately. For the safety of all of our residents, there are no men allowed on property.
Okay.
So they can go visit and eventually have nights out with their spouses or whatnot, and visits with children, as long as they are following the program and have taken, like an anger management class or a parenting class, then, they can stay as long as they want to learn how to be in recovery with their kids.
Okay, that's great. I'm curious, is there ever a court-appointed piece to this or not usually?
Occasionally, we do work with Collin County and Dallas County court systems for people that are in different programs like DDC court, or Collin County has people that always need community service, so they can come and volunteer and we can log their hours for them as well. And those court programs are difficult for the women to get through, but we help and support them in learning how to advocate for themselves and ask for what they need. Sometimes it's just they need clarity. They don't understand.
That's great. And that was mentioning the volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what opportunities there are to volunteer with Simply Grace.
Man, there's so many volunteer opportunities. We always need more people. The thrift store only has 2 employees. So we operate for 6,000 square feet of space with 2 employees. So we always have volunteers come and help sort items in the intake area, clean up, put things out on the shelves. They kind of interact with customers and tell them where things can go so they can learn these skills in the event that they haven't been able to work in a long time. They can put that on their resume that they've gained these customer service skills or organizational skills or inventory or whatever skills they're learning on their resume to show that although they haven't been actually working, their volunteer hours have gained skills that they can use in the new job.
Wow. Which is interesting that you mentioned that these women that are in the program can volunteer. Mm-hmm. What I actually meant to ask was, how can the community participate and volunteer with Simply Grace?
Yes, we always have anybody come who wants to volunteer. Kids can come as long as they're accompanied by a parent or somebody that's 18 or over. But Monday through Saturday, we're open 11 to 6, and we are always looking for volunteers. We have several from, different organizations that use that as their one time a year to come and volunteer. We welcome that. We have plenty of work to do. So, yes, and all you have to do is go on to simplygracethriftstore.com, and there's an application. And if you can't print, you can also just show up, and we'll have you sign the application and liability release and put you to work.
That's great. Which reminds me, when my kids were little, one of the things that we wanted to do was volunteer together. I wanted them to do with me was to volunteer as a family. And so there was a thrift store that was supporting, it was called Helping Hands in Midland. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had contacted a couple of different opportunities for us to volunteer, and most of them didn't allow children. And so when I went to Helping Hands, I was like, I understand it's, a thrift store. Is there something we could do together? And she said, it's actually great that you want to include the kids, because the toy department, like, people will throw items into bags and they may not all have the parts in the same bag. And even at that, we don't know how they go together. And so if your kids could maybe put them together and, know if there's a part missing or whatever, we don't want to sell that way. So if you want to help in the toy department, that would be great. Well, it was a win-win because we were volunteering. Mm-hmm. The kids were getting to play with toys. I mean, of course they worked. And of course, as the mom, their age, they were at 9, 10, 11. We had to, keep an eye, make sure they're working alongside of this play. Yeah. But then they also got to purchase if they found something they really wanted. We have so many Legos. Yeah. So many Legos. But they would allow them to buy items, that they really wanted from before they went out on the floor. But that was great for us. And it's a good memory as well, teaching them some community service and giving them the opportunity to better the community. So,
for sure. Yeah, it's a great place. We kind of also utilize that as a community center. I mean, the vibe in there is always just happy and loving and caring. And we just welcome anybody to come and volunteer, hang out. If you need help, we have all the resources possible for any substance use or mental health. Sometimes we even have other resources for food pantries and just outside counseling services. So other than just a thrift store or volunteer place, we can be a really good resource to help with pretty much anything.
The Heart of North Texas is sponsored in part by Higher Energy Staffing. Experience the transformative power of customized staffing and recruitment. scaled to your business needs. Ignite your workforce and fuel your future. And now, back to the heart of North Texas with Zoe Martin.
In volunteering, there are some fundraisers that you do that are a little different. So explain those to us and how people can help with those.
Yes. So every year we have what's called Recovery's Got Talent. And this year was our 7th season. It just happened, and it's amazing. We audition. 8 different people are promoted to on the stage, depending on what their talent is. We've had fire dancers, we've had aerialists, singers, dancers, pianists, saxophone players, bands, just people who love to just sing, poetry reading. I mean, any talent. The reason why we've done this, not only as a fundraiser for Simply Grace, but to show that even though people have had some struggles with substance use disorder, they're talented. Just like you and me or anybody, very capable, very smart, very talented in many things. And so it's kind of a way to showcase them and help break the stigma of somebody who may be struggling with those issues. When family has had enough, it's like, okay, there is hope. And there are places that help them get there. So it's a great place for the community to come together. They look forward to it every year. And for families to see what their loved ones have accomplished.
Yeah, I imagine that's a huge source of support as well. They're on the stage, they've got their family or friends in the audience watching, and then not just that, but it's a fundraiser. So That's beneficial all around.
Yes, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Is there any stories that you could share, maybe something that just like, this is why I'm here, this is why I do what I do, this is why I get out of bed in the morning?
There's so many. I can't really just pick one, but, from seeing somebody when they come in, they don't know how to live in these safe environments where people are tolerant and loving and kind and accepting. And so it's really hard for them to adjust, and they think they need to get everything done at one time, and I need this and this and this and this, and they kind of get panicky. And when you see them get to a certain point of like they've completed IOP, they've now gotten a job, they now have gotten a car, they now have been promoted to assistant house manager or house manager inside the house, or just being a mentor to others. It's really cool to see the light come on in their eyes when they really start to get it. It's amazing to see, and there's so many miracles. I don't even know how to count. So many. And the Mommy and Me house, I think, has been really, really one of the biggest blessings, because we can see these moms come in not having any access to their children, and finally they gain access to their kids. They become a mom, they get the kids back, and they move into their own place, and they've learned how to manage working, doing recovery, and being a mom in recovery. So it's just like, I don't know how to say other than it's a blessing.
Well, it just jogged my memory too. When I was in Longview, I was part of Leadership Longview. And one of the things that we got to do was, as our class of 2020, greatest of all time,
nice.
the leadership class, we got to collectively make an impact on a nonprofit. And so we had 10 different nonprofits that applied. We narrowed down to 3, and then we went on site and looked to see what the opportunities were with those 3 before we decided on the one. Mm-hmm. The one that we chose was the Women's Shelter. The Women's Shelter serves 6 counties out in East Texas, which is like ginormous.
Wow.
And that Women's Shelter said, one of the biggest needs we have is for homing pets. Because when these families need to leave, and it's usually an emergency situation in the middle of the night kind of thing, humane shelters and things like that aren't always the 24/7 kind of situation for them. And they don't want to leave their pet, right? So they may choose not to leave for the safety of their pet, because their pet has been threatened. They know when they leave that something's going to happen. And that's, they can't deal with that trauma on top of the trauma that they're experiencing.
Right.
And so we built a pet shelter on the property for that location. And I have chills thinking about it now. It was such a huge undertaking. We actually had to have a light pole moved on the property. Like the city had to come dig. And it took, we had some complications and things we had to work through to get it done. But now when we hear that, families have been able to come because we had 3 or 4 kennels for dogs, and above that we had cat kennels, but the dogs had, an out, and then we built a fence for the yard, and there's a grooming station. Like, out of curiosity, is that something that has been a situation? Is this something that is a need?
It would be a need. We do get requests for that. We don't do it with our organization because we rent our homes. And so with community living and renting, it's really difficult for those, some are afraid of animals. Yeah. Some have allergies. But there is another nonprofit that we refer to if somebody just they can't go to inpatient treatment because of their pet, then there is an organization, Dogs Matter, that actually will home their pet until they get released. And there are some sober livings out there that take pets. So we kind of rely on our community partners to handle that. We stick with what we know.
Excellent. And I always love to hear how different nonprofits work together and how that, maybe this doesn't work for us, but maybe this other location could work with you. So, being able to know who those partners are and piggyback off of one another, I think that's so great. That is awesome.
It's essential. And you get to know really who these people are that we're working with and know, hey, we might not be the best fit for this person, but I know who is.
Yes.
And so we can properly refer where we, see somebody can be successful.
Sure. That's fantastic. Jennifer, before we go off air, is there anything else that you want to let the audience know?
One thing that would be something I would love to consider, or for everybody to consider, is think of the amount of toilet paper you use just on a monthly basis for your own households. Now imagine having 41 people in sober living homes plus 7 staff members in IOP and thrift store. So toilet paper, paper towels, cleaning supplies, laundry detergent, coffee, creamer, sugar, all the essentials we have to pay for if we don't get them donated. And as a nonprofit, it really, those funds could be used to scholarship a woman who cannot afford sober living. So if we could get the community to help with donating monthly supplies or helping with, gardening or anything like that, be involved, it would help us to free up funds to help people who can't afford sober living. It happens all the time. As a nonprofit, we are able to give some scholarshiping. I mean, we gave over $100,000 just last year in free counseling.
Wow.
So the money would be spent wisely. If you want to just send us the money and contribute, we, are tax deductible, so we might be able to get more for our money, and you can donate on simplygracehouse.com.
That's perfect. And all that information for the website, how to reach them, and the thrift store and everything will be in the show notes. So
awesome.
Be sure to check that out. We are so grateful that you were able to come on today.
Yeah.
I appreciate
your time. Thank you for having me. Thank you, listeners, for listening.
Take care.
Thank you for being a part of the success of the Heart of North Texas podcast. This episode was brought to you by Higher Energy Staffing. Ignite your workforce and fuel your future. Please check our show notes for contact information for the program, our guests, and our sponsors, and please tag us on your social media. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.